Up next on Inside the SCCA, presented by RacingWire.com, learning to go fast.
Make their head drop.
Welcome to episode 202, I believe, of Inside the SCCA. Brian Bielanski, and this is a special episode I've been looking forward to for a long time. It's a good one. Well, it's going to be a good one because they're all good ones, but this one in particular I'm excited about because RacingWire.com, if you've been watching for a while, is our new presenting sponsor. Larry Mason is joining us. He is one of the instructors for RacingWire.com. We're going to learn a whole lot tonight about how to get your car, how to make your car go fast, not from a mechanical standpoint, but how to drive it faster and where you can go to learn all of that. Before we get started, Larry, I just want to thank everybody for being with us and give everybody a big happy Thanksgiving. We're recording this, but it's going to play the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. So if you're sitting at home, getting ready to watch some football because there'll be no racing on Thursday, or baking and getting ready for your friends and family to come over, happy Thanksgiving to all of you. Happy Thanksgiving to you, Larry, and welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Brian. Happy Thanksgiving to you and for all those that are watching or listening out there. It's going to be a great day. I'm really glad to be here, and congratulations. That's quite an achievement to get over 200 of these podcasts in over that span. So well done.
Thank you. Season 5 will be kicking off here at episode 209. But we're going to have you guys, RacingWire.com, with us for all of Season 5, and I'm so happy about that and excited about it. So, all right, Larry, we asked the same question to everybody. It is the first-timers question, and here it comes. How did you get mixed up in this crazy sport that we love?
Well, when I was a school kid, my buddy Fred said, "Hey, Larry, do you want to go to the Long Beach Grand Prix?" And I said, "I don't know, what is it?" He says, "Well, it's this car race through the city streets." I said, "Okay, let's go." And I just remember seeing these beautifully colored cars, the exotic names on them, and then watching the cars on the track and the sights and the smells and the sounds. It was just, it just hooked me right then and there. It was just fantastic.
Do you remember about what year that was?
I can tell you it was 1979, and the first car that I saw was a very bright blue Ligier of Jacques Lafitte, and I thought, wow, this is really international.
Yeah. So that was back in the Formula 5000 days, right?
Actually, Formula One. So,
okay.
Formula One, and that was when they used to go up Pine Avenue up to Ocean Boulevard and then down Linden. They used to call it the Linden Leap, and that's where I first parked myself with my buddy, and we're watching them almost fly across the edge of the road there, coming down Linden, and then just squirting away, and just, oh man, it was just sensational.
Was that when they still ran the big uphill and you could see the cars decompress when they hit the top of the hill?
Yep. Yeah, they went up Pine Avenue up to Ocean, made a right, went down the long front straightaway, which was Ocean Boulevard at the time, where pit lane was, and then they made the hard right, the 90-degree right, to go down Linden, then a left onto Seaside. They went through, which is essentially turn 10 today, is kind of the same thing.
Right.
They went up further up to the hairpin, and then they came down much longer Shoreline Drive, and at the end of Shoreline Drive back then, it was actually another hairpin. So they had the International hairpin, the Queen's hairpin, and then they made their way back. But yeah, it was just phenomenal just to see those cars there and just be around it. It was just something I'd never seen or experienced or knew about before.
I had a similar experience. My best friend's dad took us to Road America for IMSA GTP. This was back when the Nissans were part of it, and Jeff Brabham was driving the 83 Nissan. And the two things I remember distinctly, I'm a teenager, the two things I remember distinctly are is that sound when they backed off of the way that, and I was like, that is the coolest sound I have ever heard. And then all of the ladies were wearing bikinis, and as a teenager, I thought, wow, this is awesome. So, and I knew my dad had raced in the past, but wasn't really what we did at that point in time. And then a couple years later, my dad decided to get back into driving race cars, and I was done. I I knew that in some form or fashion that would be the rest of my life. And now, I guess 35, 38 years later, I'm sitting here talking with you about cars. So
Yeah, it's a wonderful sport. So much to it, and inside and out, the people and the machinery too. I mean, there's so much cool stuff. Whether it's the Camel GTP days, the really premier time in IMSA. Although now you could say it's a resurgence of the same thing. But yeah, just phenomenal different days of racing.
Certainly.
Every era has its cool stuff.
Absolutely. So there's got to be a lot of distance between 1979 Long Beach Grand Prix and becoming an instructor with raceschool.com. So tell me a little bit about your background in motorsports and what you've done over the last, what is this, 40 some years?
It's been a long time. So, I started when I was very young. And basically what I did is I started going to more races to learn and understand about it. And then my first experience of racing myself is in my little blue Ford Pinto that I had as a street car. And essentially I started doing slaloms, or what they would call Solo 2 today. Mm-hmm. I graduated from that into going into what they call a time trial, which is what they used to call a Solo 1 or something like that. And then actually into the road racing. And I never thought I could actually race a Pinto, Pinto of all things. But going to the races back in the day at Riverside and having met some people. And I actually started learning more about the racing, and I was doing announcing and photography back then. And so I get to interview a lot of the drivers. I figured this is a good way for me to learn about the racing and understand the different aspects, whether it's the crew chiefs or the drivers or the workers. And so, I had actually a guy that I've now instructed with over the years, Darren Young, and he encouraged me. He used to race a 510, and he said, you can race it, tape up the headlights, take the muffler off, and you can go put a roll cage in and get it done. Just a roll bar at the time is all we needed. So I ran it in improved touring class B.
Right.
And in that car, we ended up actually being very successful. We won a couple of championships with it, had the fastest Pinto in the entire Western United States, set track records with it, and moved on from there. From that, I went into what's called a Sports 2000, which is sort of like, they still have the class. They have CS 2000 now. Yep. Not the Honda Sports 2000 that people thinks about, or the S2000, but more like the open prototypes, like an IMSA car, but open cockpit, closed wheel. And it actually ran the exact same engine that I had in my Pinto.
Yep,
so
the 2.0 Ford.
At least that part was familiar.
Yeah. It's funny because we ran improved touring in the Midwest. And there was a Pinto out there that was this pesky little Pinto, and we had the Honda CRX in ITB, and it was very demoralizing when you lost to the Pinto, because you're like, you shouldn't be losing to a Pinto, and it turns out that Pinto had a pretty interesting lineage, even back through the early to mid 70s. That car ran in IMSA and had some success there as well. So. So I don't feel so bad anymore about the Pinto now that I know the history behind it.
The rumor had it was more aerodynamic going backwards than it was forwards. I never tried to prove that theory, but we actually had some very stellar people who drove Pintos. Yeah. Actually, Lynn St. James, Indy 500 Rookie of the Year, she started in a Pinto. I interviewed her and had that story come out. And technically, the guy who won that Grand Prix in 1979, my hero, Gilles Villeneuve, rumor has it he actually started in one as well. So, it's a good company to be a part of.
Absolutely. So when did you start getting into the instructing?
Actually, not long after I started racing. So I went through what was back then an SCCA, California Sports Car Club region, or Cal Club. They had a driver's school, and that's where I actually did my driver's schools. And so after I went from novice permit to regional license to national license. And after I had been racing for a while, they asked me if I wanted to instruct, and I started way back then. So in 86 is when I started instructing, and so I've been doing it ever since.
So the whole history of schools is interesting, because back when you and I started, almost everybody went through the SCCA school. And oftentimes, back when I started, you had to do 2 of them before you could get your regional license. And then you had to do a couple of 3 or 4 regionals before you can get your national ticket, and then you're a race car driver. Today, it's a little bit different, because some organizations don't even require you to have a school. You just show up with a driver's license and you can go racing. SCCA still requires some sort of schooling. Not all regions do a school anymore. And so now the teaching of the craft of race car driving in some ways has shifted from the SCCA-based schools to the commercial schools.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know whether that's good or bad, but it's kind of just the reality of where we're at with things, right?
True. So Cal Club used to have their own school. Like I said, I attended it. I taught at it. But a few years back, and I don't remember exactly how many years it was with pandemic, it's sort of a black hole of time there. But a few years back, Cal Club stopped doing their own driving schools, and they sent that with Fastlane. So raceschool.com. Fastlane has been doing Cal Club's basically the official school, if you will.
Right.
And so we do all of the driver certifications to get your novice permit, your regional license, all of that.
So tell us a little bit about the history of Fastlane Racing School. Where was the idea? Where did it come from? How long has it been around?
Been around over 40 years. So basically, it started at Willow Springs International Raceway, the fastest road in the West. That's been around since, I think, 1953. In 1956, Willow Springs Racing School was established, and it really grew out of that. And so Danny McKeever founded Fastlane Racing School, and he's done a great job with it and promoted it over the years, and that started in 1980. And I think Fastlane is really most well known for having taught the celebrities for what was back then the Toyota Grand Prix of Long Beach, now the Acura Grand Prix of Long Beach. And so we were the official school of Toyota racing, and we taught all of those celebrities for many, many years, and that's how far it goes back.
Now, were you involved with that part of the program, the Toyota celebrity teaching part of it?
I actually never did any of those particular schools, although I was there as a member of the media doing interviews with the celebrities and even the instructors as well, and always trying to get an inside line of who was going to be the fastest and why and what they thought. So always a racing mind.
That Toyota celebrity school launched some careers, didn't it?
It absolutely did. And, just some of the guys and gals that went through there, it's extremely talented. Alfonso Ribeiro went through the school, and then I know he was racing go-karts. I raced at the Reno Grand Prix in a Spec Racer Ford. He was actually, Norelco, I think, sponsored him and a bunch of the other guys, some other celebrities that had gone through the school. So he did a pro racing career for a while. Before that, the school that was at Willow Springs that I taught at, we had Paul Newman and Tom Cruise and a bunch of other guys helicopter in. And I know Tom Cruise actually did some professional racing in SCCA Endurance for a while. Frankie Muniz, who people know as Malcolm in the Middle.
Yep.
He actually ran Atlantics professionally. And I think this year he's actually into the NASCAR Truck Series.
He is.
And so he's moved along quite a ways in that as well.
Yeah. Tom Cruise ended up coming to my driver's school at Road America back in the day, and we were always like, it's like, leave Tom Cruise alone. He's whatever the case was. It turned out he's just the nicest guy in the world, and we talked racing and didn't talk movies, and it was my little touch with fame at that point in time. Now covering the sport, I've had a chance to talk with a lot of those folks, and Paul Newman was home was Lime Rock, and I was the flag chief at Lime Rock for a while, so we got to know him and his wife, and McDreamy has been part of IMSA for a while and at the Rolex 24. So a lot of celebrities have gotten involved through the Long Beach Grand Prix and that kind of thing. So pretty cool to have that as part of Fastlane Racing School's legacy.
Absolutely. I mean, there's been so many different drivers that have gone through. And then the last year that they ran the celebrity race, they got all the former winners to come back, and it was really spectacular. Kind of miss those days. I don't know if Acura will bring that back with us or not, but it was really, really a good time.
Absolutely. So, it's you guys have an interesting approach to how you how you work with students. And I remember when I first started, talking with your people about being part of the podcast, and I just called to say, hey, you want to help sponsor the podcast some way, and we got into this conversation with Mark, and the way you interact with the students before they even get to the school is not something I've ever heard of before. So tell me a little bit about when I call or sign up for my first school, a competition school, let's say, what's going to happen before I even get there?
I guess the unique thing going back to this is that we're doing more of the school has evolved. And as you know, cars evolve over the years. They go from double clutching and now up to paddle shifting and things like that. So we really have to evolve our schooling and our teaching and how we do that. And really, what we've focused in on lately is the one-on-one. So it's really an exclusive one-on-one coaching. So one instructor for one driver. And we tailor-made it as it's an exclusive experience, tailor-made for their experience level, what they're trying to achieve, how long they want to do with the whether it's a school or move on or do multiple schools or be a professional race car driver, what have you, and really bring them in as part of our Fast Lane family. And that's what we like about it. So that really starts from the time they contact us with a consultation. And so we ask a number of different questions to just kind of see where they're at and how we can help them to proceed and help them succeed in the sport of auto racing, or if it's just becoming a better driver. No matter what it is, we're there to help you and what your journey is all about.
Right. What's the progression of schools if I'm just starting out? Is it you go right to a 2-day school, 3-day school? How does it normally work?
Well, you can do an individual lapping day, just an advanced driving school. We really start with, if you think about it, a DDA, which is our Defensive Driving Academy. And that just helps you become a safer driver. And that's not just for teenage drivers. That's for everybody, seniors and everybody in between. We do corporate driving days as well. So we've had people like Mercedes and Toyota and Google and different companies, Tesla, come in where we do corporate drivers training. We've had programs and continue to have programs with the California Highway Patrol, or CHP. They actually have to, when they get their badge, right, they have to really possess some driving skill. And so they have their own driver's training program. But some of the students who go through that fail that. And if they fail that, then they'll come to us and we'll teach them to where they can go back and pass it. Or better yet, they'll come see us first. That way, when they go through, they pass it the first time. So it really depends who you are, where you're going. We have everything from go-karts to Indy Lights and radicals and everything else that if you want closed wheel, do you drive stick shift if you don't drive stick shift? So we've had students, we've had teenagers come in that just want to do a high performance lapping day and they don't even know how to drive a stick shift car. And before we got our paddle shift car, then we have to teach them how to drive stick shift. And so it just really runs the gamut of where you are in your journey and how we can help you proceed and progress through that.
We had a guy on last week, a young kid, great young driver, Camden Hibbett. And he was telling the story about he went from quarter midgets to spec Miatas or spec MX-5s. And at age 13, so he had never driven any car, let alone a stick shift. And that was a heck of a learning curve for him to go into his first test day. So, yeah, a lot of people, adults and kids, not just kids. There's a lot of adults out there that don't know how to drive a stick shift.
Not anymore.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Not anymore.
It's crazy. So
we did get a paddle shift car now just in case, but
okay.
But I think that's part of the fun too. And people like the experience. They just, experiential programs, is a big buzzword these days, but really getting the experience of being on the racetrack and actually driving a stick shift vehicle. People don't do that anymore. So I think that's part of the fun too. They want to actually be able to do that. Or then maybe they've had a little bit of experience in the past. They've been driving an automatic for the past 5, 10, 20 years, whatever it may be. And they want to get out there and experience the thrill of actually doing it properly.
When you get some of these corporate programs, you get folks in there who really maybe are a little apprehensive. Maybe they don't necessarily want to be there. It's part of a team building exercise. What's it like when they light up after doing a couple of laps, or maybe they've figured out how to do something that they never thought they'd do? It's pretty cool when you see their face light up in that situation, isn't it?
Absolutely, and it never gets old. And that goes for whether it's a corporate thing or a student who's going through racing or a teen driver who's, very, very nervous. Maybe they've been in a crash or an accident before and they're just so nervous to be there in the first place. And to see them progress and their confidence grow. And sometimes actually some people will come in very confident. In fact, I would say overconfident. And to see them get humbled a little bit and then understand, oh, wow, I guess I didn't know as much as I thought I did coming in here. That's always eye-opening. And it's always impressive to see how they grow and go through that program, that, like I say, that journey that they take, whether it's through the course of a day or over a few days.
You mentioned that the defensive driving class isn't just for teens. And while I'm sure that's the case, I always tell people who've got young drivers that a defensive driving course is so helpful. We didn't have that when I was a kid. I don't know if you had. We went to just regular driver's ed. My golf coach was my driver's ed teacher, and there was no defensive driving in like what you're talking about. I was fortunate. I grew up in Wisconsin, so Dad took me out on the frozen lake and said, okay, make the car spin, make the car stop. And it was not anything as detailed as I'm sure what you guys do, but it was at least an opportunity to get yourself into a bad position and then kind of figure yourself out how to get out of it. Is it mostly teens that go to your defensive driving course? Because I just think it's so important to give people that opportunity.
Typically, that's what we see. I would say it's probably 80% of who goes through our DDAs, at least 80%. But you do get, a lot of the time you'll have a parent go through with them or just other people that just want to go through. And like I say, we've had, over 80 years old people coming through our courses taking the class. And you had a very valuable experience because most kids don't get that, especially here on the West Coast where we're based. We may get a little bit of rain or a drizzle every now and again. That's a big deal, right? But having had the opportunity to spin, when I went through driver's school, my driver's ed in high school or whatever, it's like, well, if you get into a spin, turn into the spin. They didn't tell you what to do after that.
Right.
And so, yeah, it's important to know what you do after that.
Absolutely. Although I will say the highways out here 5 minutes after it starts raining are kind of like being out on the lake with all the oil coming up off the roads.
True. That is very true. First rain of the year, which we're supposed to get here this weekend.
That's right.
And into next week.
That's right. How many people show up for, let's say, a defensive driving course or one of these corporate things and end up coming back to go to a competition driver school? The bug is set.
Yeah, I don't have that stat. I'd have to go back and get that actual stat. But I know we've had a number of people who have gone through and actually then come back and take a school and go on to a racing school and get their license. We've definitely had that happen before. And that's actually happened with the celebrities too.
Yeah.
They want more. That one experience wasn't enough and they've come back for more. And I know, like, for instance, some of the celebrities have come back and they've brought their family and they've come back year after year or different parts of the time of the year. And they just, hey, we want to come out and get some seat time and just have some fun. So they've done that too.
Nice. Back when we started, there was no data. That's not true. There was data. It was a stopwatch.
Yeah, right.
With, in my case, Mom clicking the button, and that was what we had for data. That was it. Data is a very, very important part of motorsports now. If you're not doing it, you're probably not going to go as fast as the other people out there. How do you incorporate data into your school process?
It's a great question. And honestly, the stopwatch is still king because no matter whether it's you or me or Max Verstappen or Lewis Hamilton or anybody else, the bottom line is that stopwatch, right? But it's how you get to that minimum lap time and that maximum speed. So we use not only data from a standpoint of looking at graphs and curves and things like that, but we also use video data. And so we can tell just by going over, and we have an overlay with our system. And for instance, we use a Garmin in our Scion FRS and when we're out there. And so we can coach, by the way, when we're in there, our helmets are wired for sound. And so I don't have to yell for the person to hear, what?
Yep.
So we can talk at a normal level. We can hear each other. And then when we get done, we can go back and go over that data and we can look at the video overlay. We can look at where they were on track Now we can say, okay, this is where you were with throttle, this is where you were with your speed, this is where you are with your steering, and we can look at all these different details and then help that student learn to go faster. Here's what you need to do to make this easier. Actually, a lot of the time they work way too hard, and so we want to simplify their lives. And so you don't want to overload them with data right away. That's not what we try to do. We try to meet them where they are and then gradually progress.
Do you get together with your students on a sim basis? Is that a coaching program that you guys offer as far as after students been through the school, if they wanted to do stuff, off the sim or work with you off of a race weekend and send you their data and talk about it? Is that something you guys continue on through with?
I haven't personally done that myself. I know and we don't have at Fastlane at this point in time, we do not have a set simulator that okay, we're going to bring a student in. They're not actually going to get on track. We're going to have them go through the simulator. We don't have that at this point in time. It has been discussed. Whether we do that or not in the future, I don't know. I'm certainly open to it, and I know all the other instructors that have this background can do that. But I personally haven't done that.
Got it.
Now, I have followed up with students, and we've talked about certain things, like on a race weekend. If I see a student that I've taught before, they come up and talk to me. We're always happy to help out on a race weekend and things like that. So, but we know we're doing a good job if the student's successful.
Right.
And so, for instance, I had one of the students came in and actually finished right behind me on the track.
Uh-oh.
And then the next day he beat me. So that was good. So
there you go.
So that makes you feel good. It means you're doing something right.
Very nice. Very nice. All right, so this is Inside the SCCA, presented by RaceSchool.com. And you are an officially accredited SCCA licensing school. For those who don't know, what does that mean?
So that means that if you go through our SCCA program, then that will get you your novice permit and even into a regional license. And just so you know, our founder, Danny McKeever, he created the SCCA licensing program, and Fastlane was the very first official SCCA sanctioned licensing school in the United States.
Really?
And so that means we do what needs to get done. So if you want to get your racing license, yes, we can do that. And of course, there's other schools out there that do it. Most other schools, though, are having a bunch of people come through, and it's, all a bunch of students that maybe it's a 3-to-1 instructor ratio or 2-to-1 even. But again, right now we are 1-to-1. So when you come through, we are entirely focused on you, and you will get the best, most information you need, and the best way presented to you in the way that you like to learn and data-driven, that's going to help you succeed in your journey.
So what does a typical, is that a 3-day school that gets you your comp and then right into your full comp license?
Yeah, and you can do it either two days or 1 3-day. It depends. We can do it different ways. And again, it depends on the student. So again, we try to work with our students because trying to get the time off from work, a lot of these people that take the classes, they may be very successful business people. They can't take off a block of time in the middle of the week, but they can come on maybe a Friday and Saturday or a Sunday and a Monday or whatever the case may be. And so we can work out whatever it needs to be with them so they can get their seat time in and get their accreditation in. But they still have to jump through all the hoops, if you will, whatever SCCA requires. And it's going over all the flags. And
right.
we go so far as to talk about when we do an SCCA school, it's not just what SCCA has as far as, the rules and regulations and that, but we like to go through what a race weekend is all about. So when you show up, this is what's going to happen through tech, through just getting your registration, who the officials are, what do they expect out of you as a novice driver, and different things like that. So we go through a lot of different things, where you're going to pit, where you're going to paddock, and go through a race weekend and kind of simulate that with race starts and pseudo races, if you will, and different things like that. So we try to run the gamut so that when they get to the racetrack, they feel much more prepared, much more comfortable and at ease and relaxed to be able to now focus on going fast on the racetrack.
There's so much information that a newbie has to absorb to be able to get to that first race weekend and finish it, be safe doing it. In your schools, I know when I did my schools, there was very little tutoring on how to go faster. They wanted to see you kind of go faster, but that was just kind of you've got more seat time, and every session from nothing to the end, you're just naturally going to progress because you've got seat time and you've never had seat time before. In your licensing schools, is it kind of the same way where you're really mostly trying to make sure that they're out there, they're safe, they know the rules, that they're not gonna hopefully hurt themselves or anyone else when they get to an SCCA race, or are you able to also get in some of that how to be a little bit faster in that first initial school?
Really good question. So the thing is, again, it depends on where that student is at the time.
Sure.
And bottom line for us as instructors, and I think that's for any SCCA school, I want to feel comfortable with that student on the track. And if I don't feel comfortable with that student on the track, he's not going to pass. Okay. And I think that's the same for anybody. And I know I've been on the track before where it's like, how did this person get a license to be on the track? This person is unsafe, you know, and we want to make sure they're safe first and foremost. Okay. That's not only for their own safety, for my safety and all the other competitors and workers around there. So that's number one. They have to be safe. My analogy to this, as far as going faster, is if you think about who are the best athletes in the world, Olympic athletes,
right?
Who are the most coached athletes in the world, Olympic athletes.
Right.
And so the more seat time, like you mentioned, the more coaching they can get, the better off they're going to be and the faster that they can go. So we may be able to get somebody that's safe. They may not be the fastest person on the track, but they know that they can go faster with more seat time. Well, if the race is this weekend and that was your goal and they're safe enough to be on the track, they may not win. They probably won't win the first time out, but at least if they're going to be safe and they're, very heads up, they're keeping their eyes on the mirrors and so on and so forth. Yeah, that's fine. But the people who really want to go fast and win, not just get out onto the track, then again, more seat time, more coaching, more training with us is obviously, or someone else, but obviously we prefer ourselves with Fastlane. We would love to help you go faster.
So I guess you've said this a couple of times, and it just kind of dawned on me because my preconception was, now I'm realizing a dumb preconception, that most of your students have never been in a car and gone racing before. But now that you've said we kind of start with them where they're at, I realize you're probably getting some people with karting experience, some people who may have raced with other organizations, and maybe they're not coming in with no background. So that would be the opportunity to teach them the SCCA way. And when that happens, how much are you unteaching bad habits sometimes?
Yeah, you really have to, again, go with the rules of the SCCA. So, make sure they understand the flags, because a lot of these people have never even seen the flags. Maybe they've done track days before, these high-performance track days, which are great as far as they've been up to speed of some sort in some high-performance vehicle, but they really don't understand what it takes to go really fast. They don't understand some of the fundamentals, so we have to kind of back up. And, we start every race school, we'll start with some fundamentals, a chalk talk, basically a classroom session. We can go out, we can do lead follow sessions. And like I said, now we'll even do a track walk sometimes, depending upon the person we're dealing with. And we can stop on different parts of the track and say, this is very important. This, you don't want to do something here, it gets you into trouble, or this is where you can go really, really fast if you get this corner right. So we start them where they are and we go from there. But yeah, sometimes they do have some bad habits. We definitely have to break them of that. And again, it's all in the realm of safety for not only them, but the other competitors as well.
Showing a little video here that you guys have provided this looks like a lead follow session. And then a little later in the video, we'll see a little bit of the one-on-one sessions with talking about the data and the chalk talk, which we've got a little bit of that as well. So a couple of other programs, let's run through them. We've talked a little bit about the High Performance Driving Academy and driver development. Is that different from a racing school, or is that the next step after you go through the initial school? Or a little bit of both?
Either way.
Yeah.
You can do a racing school and then come back for advanced lapping, high performance driving and development. Or you can do the high performance driving development. Then we've found students that have done that. It's like, I want to get my license. And it's like, okay, let's do it. So then they take the extra day or 2 days of the school, and then we actually transfer them to the SCCA school. You got to think the fundamentals, no matter which school it is, are still going to be the same.
Right.
And it goes back to that stopwatch. You want to be faster on the track. Well, how do you get there? You need to know the basics of your cornering techniques, your vision, braking, acceleration, all of these different things, line theory, and all of that. And so once you've gone through the theory, now let's put it into a practical application. Let's go out on track and let's see you actually do this.
Right, right. You've got karting programs. Tell us a little bit about those.
Yep. So really, if you want to have some fun at Fast Lane Racing School, you can start in a go-kart and you can work your way all the way up to an Indy Lights car. And so we, like I say, we run the gamut there. So we do a lot of that is corporate days where they just want to do some team building, and they come out and, well, we use the kart track out at Buttonwillow Raceway Park, and we've got a fleet of go-karts that you can use and have fun with. And again, it's sort of like a lead follow to start, and then different people have different experience levels, and we get out there and we pound laps in the go-karts.
Tell us about the relationship with Buttonwillow. You're out there now. Every time I go out there, that's my new home track. I'm the race announcer out there for Cal Club, and I'm out there 6 times a year, and more than I probably should be, but it keeps me out of trouble. But that's one of your 2 home bases, right?
It's really now our real home base. So we've got a big double wide shop there now, and we've got all of our vehicles there. So we can do everything from our schools, where we can do in our classroom. We've got a driver's lounge with the big screen TV. So if we want to go over data and video analysis, we can do it on the big screen. So maybe the driver came with his family or something, and they want to understand what's going on. So we can do that. We can also prep cars. We can, do everything. So if somebody wants to go racing with us, we can help them that way as well. But yeah, the shop's out there, and we run out of that shop, and it's great because being right there when you come off track, especially if it's the middle of summer when it's really hot or the middle of winter when it's really cold, we can come into a comfortable spot in the shade or in the warmth or coolness and sit down, relax. And we like to do that too. Part of it is seat time, but part of it is you can't just keep going and going and going. Right. Because as you know, if you've been on the track before, physically it's demanding, but mentally, especially for a newcomer, it's extremely demanding. So we like to do some laps, and let's come in and analyze and think about it and process that to where we can get back out there again and improve.
Right.
So work on it, come back, think about it, talk about it. Let's go back and improve. And so through the day, we'll take a lot of breaks, but again, a lot of the drivers, the students that go through, middle of the afternoon, not even to the end of the day, they're done. Yeah. Because it's so demanding that people don't really think about it.
Yeah, that's the problem.
I will say, for me as one of the instructors, I'm also an ACE certified personal trainer, so I can go ahead and cover the fitness aspect of the auto racing from my experience. And one thing I didn't mention earlier, I broke both legs and both ankles at the Dallas Grand Prix. Back in the day in the Sports 2000 car. So I had to come back from that. And so I came back from that to actually compete in triathlon. And so I've really understood from a physical standpoint what it takes to come back from that and to be in top physical condition to race. I've driven everything from go-karts to Indy cars and raced at the Grand Prix of Long Beach and Indy Lights. So I understand the different category of cars and how physically demanding they are, the higher you get into it.
Give me 1 second here. We're gonna pause the conversation for a moment so I can thank the other folks who helped me put this on. As much as we appreciate RaceSchool.com being our presenting sponsor, and we are awesome and happy to have them aboard. We do have a couple of other folks who are with us here as well, and of course, Ray Esports is the official sim racing league of Inside the SCCA. We love working with them and their programs. Their racing is their sim racing is a little bit different than the average iRacing, where you got a bunch of people out there who might be out there wanting to wreck them instead of race them. Most of the Ray Esports folks are actual racers, and we try to act like we're on the racetrack as much as possible. So a big shout out to Ray Esports and all the things that they do. Also want to thank Solo Performance Specialties. They are a fantastic group of folks who run around to a lot of the SCCA National Tour solo events, and with their trailer, and they do tire work as well as accessories and a whole bunch of other stuff. They were helpful in getting me out there with my Honda Fit. They didn't help the Fit go faster because that's impossible. It's kind of problems with the wing nut behind the wheel. But good folks there helping us out with that. And then, of course, RaceKeeper is the official in-car camera of Inside the SCCA. Whenever you see the Fit out there and me driving it from the in-car, that's RaceKeeper video, and they do a real nice job as well. So thanks to all those folks. And, of course, Inside the SCCA is now raceschool.com. So if you like the conversation that we're having today and you want to find out more information or go sign up, go to raceschool.com. All of the information for all of those groups are in the show notes.
I think what sets Fastlane apart from other racing schools is just the wealth of knowledge that they have. All the instructors have raced IndyCar, this, that, Indy Pro, myself. I mean, it's just the places they've been, the people they've met, and the experience they have is unmatched. And from the schools that I've been in and that I've helped out, every single driver I've seen has improved immensely. So definitely it works, and it's a pleasure being a part of it.
All right, so you kind of touched on it, and you took me to where I was going to go next, talking about the fitness, especially new drivers who may not understand the harshness of the environment, especially if you're in a tin top. The environment inside a race car at Southern California or anywhere, but particularly in Southern California in May and maybe September, it can be 100 degrees outside and 150 in the car. You do work with that as well, right? A little bit, trying to give some of that knowledge and training?
Yes. I'm not going to say I'm a certified nutritionist, which I'm not. I have some knowledge of that, and we have people you can work with that we can refer you to for your nutrition standpoint. But we certainly know the basics of the nutrition, what you're going to eat, when you're going to eat it, how you're refueling as far as hydration. It's extremely important during a race weekend. And so we talk about all of that and what works best for a number of, like I said, we have over 40 instructors with Hall of Fame experience in off-road racing that we've have Baja 1000 winners, Baja 500 winners, Hall of Famers, Indy 500 competitors as well. So we have done enough over the years to really understand what works and what doesn't, but also to understand each person is different and individual. So we can give them some general guidelines to work with and see how that works for them.
You're not only a fast race car driver, and from everyone I've talked to, a fantastic instructor. You are the host of a world-famous podcast. And I'd love for you to share us a little bit about what that is, so that when folks are sick and tired of listening to me talk to people, they might be able to tune in to listen to you talk to people. Tell me about your show.
And so raceschool.com, if you go to the blog and press tab, that'll lead you right to our podcast that I do. I host that. It's also on Apple and Spotify and wherever you can find your podcasts. And so typically I'm dealing or interviewing great drivers, Indy 500 champions, a lot of the NTT IndyCar Series drivers and crew members, and even some of the Cal Club workers and emergency workers, different people. We do a couple of special things during the year. We've been doing this for about 3 years, almost 4 years now. We do a Women in Motorsports Month. We're a woman-owned company.
Oh, great.
So we do a Women in Motorsports Month in September. So I mentioned Lynn St. James before, but we've done a number of different females. Samantha Tan was one of the ones we did this year, is from a driver standpoint. Beth Peretta, who's an IndyCar team owner. So we've done different people with that. November has turned out to be a lot of fun. and that has been our JC Agajanian Jr. Seems like it's coming into that month because, man, what a storyteller he is. So we've had a lot of fun with him. We started that last year because I'd always seen the guy around the track. And for those who don't know him, if you think of Ascot Raceway in Gardena back in the day, which was an extremely popular racetrack in Southern California. His dad was the big promoter of that. His two brothers are involved in motorsports. And so we got to know him actually very, very well last year. And so we've done some more interviews with him this year, and that'll be coming up actually tomorrow on Thanksgiving Day. We have a really cool one this year. He's talking about Evel Knievel and his story, and also Pikes Peak and Al Unser Jr. and the Andretti. So we've had a lot of fun with that. But yeah, we do. Ours are short form. So typically 5 to 7 minutes is what we do.
Right.
But with JC, like I say, he's such a storyteller. They're a little bit longer, about 12 to 20 minutes, 15, 20 minutes or so.
Nice.
And they're weekly. So every week we've got a new one coming out.
Great. Yeah, Lynn St. James was up in the booth with us at the June Sprints, and I think she was trying to get away from having to shake hands and sign autographs, and sitting with us and talking about cars for a couple of races was a nice break for her, and just a vast knowledge of the history of everything. But her, I would love for her to be my instructor, because she is so smart when it comes to talking about how a car should go around a corner. She could pick stuff out, that I'm talking about other stuff, and she would chime in, "Oh, did you see that?" And just an amazing talent from being able to describe what's going on and talk about cars. So I can only imagine how good that podcast was.
She's a class act. We did a 2-part with her, and part of that was she talked about the Women in Motorsports North America initiative.
Right.
And, she's basically a co-founder of that, and Cindy Sisson and some others, Beth Beretta is involved in that. And so they're actually doing their program. I think this is their 4th annual, I think in December, like around the 11th or 12th of December this year in Indianapolis. And that's been a great program. And yeah, she is truly a class act, and it was really a pleasure to sit down and chat with her. And, I think she never got enough credit for what she achieved. Even though she's achieved a lot, there's been a lot of naysayers. And if you're on the inside, your podcast is Inside the SCCA. If you're an insider in racing, you understand that it's not necessarily the stopwatch that covers it, because you can be a great driver, but with a team that doesn't have the wherewithal, like a Team Penske, if you will, or some of the other teams, if you're a lower funded team, even if you're a great driver, you may not make the top. You may make it to the midfield, or you could be a great driver and a great team, but you have to have that crew, everybody gel and believe in that driver.
Yeah.
And I think there's so many different aspects from the inside that people from the outside don't see. And so it was really interesting to talk to her and chat with her. And she is, I'm not going to say she's the greatest driver who ever lived. I'm not going to say that about me or any of our instructors or anybody other than maybe Mario Andretti. And that could be argued as well. But, everybody has that talent in them to get to a certain point. But you have to have, there's more to it than your driving talent at the end of the day. You have to have a good car, good tires, everything, good crew, good engineering, and good coaching, and even the top drivers still get coached. IndyCar drivers are still getting coached every day that they're out on track.
Well, and I refer to it as the package. You have to have the package. And I would add to all of what you've said, the ability to market yourself, the ability to find yourself sponsors, the ability to talk on a podcast like this, or get out of the car after you've been run over mercilessly and not lose your complete mind when NBC puts that microphone in front of you. That's one of the reasons why I have so many up and coming drivers on the podcast, because this is an opportunity for them to get some training in maybe a little bit of a lower tension moment, and they can also take that to a potential sponsor and say, hey, look at this podcast I did. I can represent your brand really well, and all of that. So there's a lot more that goes into it than just being able to drive a car fast, which you are absolutely correct in. So one of the things, I think we've gone through all of the points pretty much that we wanted to go through. But Inside the SCCA is a podcast about telling stories. So now I'm going to make you spill a little bit. Can you think of and you don't have to name names, Can you think of a student who showed up at school and in the first hour or two you went, there is no way this person's ever going to get it, and now you look back and they've become a pretty darn good race car driver?
Yeah, I don't know if it's like that much of an extreme, but we've had people that come in that, and I think almost more on the teen driving, like they're literally shaking getting into a car. They're so nervous. They can't even, do anything. And to the end of the day, they're like hammered down. Yeah. I mean, they're freaking flat out. And to see that wide of a gap in a single day, that's been amazing. And that's happened multiple times. We've seen, with the race car drivers, we've seen them come in pretty timid and then come back out. And, a lot of the time, honestly, it's with the females. The girls, they come in, but I'll tell you what, they learn so well. And that's what I mentioned earlier about some of the people coming in overconfident.
Right.
Oh, I drive Mulholland Highway. I know how to race. I know, and they come in and they're hammered down and they're stab and steer and they're, very inconsistent. Whereas the girls typically tend to come in a little bit more reserved, but they pick up on everything that you say and they progress through the day. And it's just boom, 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 boom. Nice linear curve going up. Whereas the guy starts off this and he's kind of up and down, and he'll end up at the day, you never know where they're going to end up. But the females actually tend to improve very, very well. So we love having the girls come out and learn, and it doesn't matter. It's guys, girls.
Sure.
It doesn't matter. We just love to train anybody. And what we like to see at the end of the day is, they're exhausted, but they have a big smile on their face and they want to come back for more, because
Absolutely.
That's what we like to. So we want to come back more too, because we'd like to see them improve. Because when we see them the next time, it's like, you did this really well. Now let's see if we can fix those other things. So that's been a lot of fun.
When you open up, the magazine, or you're watching on television and you see a student out there making it, is it kind of like a proud papa moment for you?
Absolutely. I've, through the years of teaching that I've done, I have national champions that I've taught. And then I've taught, I'd say coached IndyCar drivers. And, it's interesting too. You mentioned a little bit earlier about observing, like Lynn St. James was observing. Years ago, Michaela Lotion, the IndyCar driver, had a really bad shunt at California Speedway, Auto Club Speedway at the time.
I was there.
And I was telling a newer journalist that was kind of learning, he was just starting in, and for the presser, I said, it looks to me like he didn't have his eyes up. That car in front of him slowed. He didn't have his eyes up enough. It caught him off guard. He lifted, and that caused him to spin. And I got lambasted by another journalist for actually saying such a thing. Well, next year, came back, and I saw Michaela Lotion there. I said, I got to ask you something. Last year when that happened, I said, this is what it looked like to me. Is that what happened? He says, that's exactly what happened.
Yep.
And so, you pick up on these things and you learn. And, having done thousands and thousands of laps and coached and driven and understood, what it takes, you really develop a keen eye for watching and learning every single time, whether I'm driving, going through a lap on track, if I'm racing on a weekend, or with your students, or if you're just watching and you're always watching to see those little details and saying, I picked up on that. Yeah, for sure. And you'll see if you're right or not. You're not always right.
No.
A lot of the times, you pick up on stuff and you're dead on because you've seen this before and you've experienced it yourself.
That, I believe that wreck happened in turn 4.
Yes. Because I think the driver in front was going to slow and go to the pits.
Right.
Again, one of the first schools of racing or street driving, eyes up, vision up,
right.
High horizon, look way, way ahead. Well, because that'll buy you the most valuable thing in life, which is time. And that's the only time you can buy it.
Well, and in an Indy car, especially at Auto Club Speedway, they're doing 200 miles an hour. And, you glance down and look at your dashboard. You look at your steering wheel for more than an eighth of a second. And, every second is 3-4 football fields?
I think at 220 miles an hour, it's over a football field a second. So it's a lot of distance.
And there's no good time, especially at Auto Club, because it's almost like there are straightaways, but they aren't very straight.
Well,
the back straight's
what
pretty
it is with
straight.
the straightaways, they're so short.
Right, exactly.
At that speed, they're really short.
Yeah. So I can absolutely see how something like that can happen. So yeah, I was there that night, and the whole place got really quiet really fast.
There's not a small accident at that speed.
No, not at all. What makes a good coach? What makes a good instructor? Because not all race car drivers can teach. That's a special skill, and even and my other hint to people is don't ever try to teach or coach a family member. Bad idea. But what makes a good coach, a good teacher?
You think good listening skills, first of all, understanding how your student learns best. And so trying different techniques with them, because they may think that they learn a certain way, but you find out that, I actually learn this way better, or they learn exactly as they think that they do. So I think good communication, a lot of talking, a lot of time to let them process as well, and then trying different angles of let's try learning this way, let's try learning this way, and let's try learning that way. And if you gather all those things together and put that in front of them, they're bound to learn something. And so, but again, you have to ask questions. Does this make sense? Do you understand that? What are you having an issue with? And just, again, getting that communication flow going and helping them to understand. And then sometimes we'll go on the track, and, even if I'm sitting right seat with them, we can help them, so I can actually tug on the steering wheel a little bit if I need to, or we'll stop. We'll say, let me drive the car because you're doing everything pretty well here, and here, but let me just help you with this section here. And then when I drive it, they can say, oh, now I get it. Okay. Because in their mind, they have their own vision of where they should be based on the line on a piece of paper, but that's not how it is on the track. So getting some visual aspects of things to look at on the track is super important. And again, sometimes just stop in the car and say, okay, we want you to place the car here, and this is what you should be seeing. Okay. And so we can do that again with a one-on-one coaching. We can actually stop the car on the track in this section and say, okay, this is it. We can actually get out of the car and walk that section of the track, and you can see this is what you visually want to be looking at. This is where you want to place that left front tire, your right front tire. This is what you should be feeling in here, and so on and so forth. So I think when you combine all of those different things together, and again, listening very, very well to what they have to say and asking a lot of questions, but you do have to provide the feedback. I think that's a key.
How much has the fact that most of us have some form of a sim at home changed the dynamic as far as the learning curve for racing? Obviously, sim racing is not one for one. I'll never suggest that it is, but even the more basic sims these days are pretty darn good. How much has that changed things for you for you and the way you teach?
I think some of the students who have come in that have a lot of sim experience, they pick up on, well, obviously the hand-eye coordination is there. And so now it's just getting the feel of what this weight transfer is like, and the G-forces and things like that. But as far as developing the line, they're pretty close already. So they come in with a little bit more of an advantage to somebody who's never done anything like this before. So I think that is definitely a help. I know from my personal experience, I don't have a fancy sim at home, but during the pandemic, mine wasn't put together. My wife finally said, put that thing together and use it, And,
yeah.
And I did. And after not having raced for a couple of years, it's like the first time I got into a race car, within 4 or 5 laps, it's like, I'm on pace.
Yeah.
And I didn't expect it because I was in a car that I'd never driven before. And so that definitely helps. It's very valuable. And like we mentioned earlier, seat time is seat time. Everything you can do to help you learn is going to be good. My 3 initials are ABL, always be learning.
Right.
So whether it's on a sim, whether it's reading something, whether it's watching videos, which again, you have to be careful with. And when we talk to students about it, hey, if you're coming to Buttonwillow for the first time, you may want to look at some in-car, but be careful what you watch, because some of the in-car video that gets posted on YouTube are terrible drivers. They don't know what they're doing or where they're going. So you don't want to develop bad habits from that. So just because you can have information, they say information is knowledge, it has to be valuable information.
Right.
It has to be good information. And that's why it's always valuable to come to a school where you have, like I say, the wealth of instructors. We have like Scott Atchison. He's not only raced at the Indy 500, but he won the Baja 1000 as well.
Yeah.
We have Matt Tregley, who's really fast. Craig Stanton, who's won IMSA champions. We have championships. So we have such a good group of people, young drivers like Christian Brooks, who went out to St. Pete and kicked butt in the USF 2000. He's run Indy Lights. All of these different things. We have such a wealth of knowledge that we can help you. And, different students learn differently, but sim is definitely one way to help, but it's not the only way.
Yeah, I tell people with the sims that, and especially at the grassroots level, but I've never heard a pro driver tell me they ever get enough seat time either. But at the grassroots level, on a race weekend, you might get, unless you're doing endurance racing, you might get, a 20-minute qualifying session, a 20-minute practice session, and then you go racing. And if you get to a racetrack for the first time and you got to give up that first practice session just to learn the racetrack, you've wasted 20 minutes of time. So if you could at least get some knowledge of that racetrack, kind of know where your turning points are, know where your braking points are, that basically gives you a whole nother session to actually go fast and be more productive with it. So that's how I find the sim to be really helpful. Absolutely true. And sometimes I don't do an actual podcast interview. Sometimes it's a blog. And so I have, if you go back on the website on raceschool.com, blog and press, you can see about what's my line? How do you find the proper racing line? How do you learn a new track? So we give some tips and techniques on how to do that sort of thing. And it's like I say, learn, but get the good information. Yeah.
Be specific and very careful on where you get your information from. There's a lot of good sources, but there's a lot of bad sources.
Absolutely. I think we're coming close to the end. Is there anything I haven't asked you about that I should? Have we missed anything?
Well, one thing that we didn't talk about, which is kind of new for us, but we have the OHV tours. Okay. That's a new thing for the school. That's the off-highway vehicle.
Okay.
And so you can get to go on a tour with, like I say, Baja champions and Hall of Famers, and go out there and get an off-highway vehicle and four-wheelers and just have a total experience. You can do 2 days or 3 days or a custom experience. So that's kind of a cool thing that we do at the school. Again, we have so many different ways, from go-karts all the way up to Indy Lights and even the Radicals. So it's sort of like an IMSA GT car open cockpit, a little bit slower, of course, but paddle shifters. We have so many different ways to go out and have fun. And I just think this time of year, if you want to get a gift for the guy or girl that has everything, or for your kids that are just now learning to drive, absolutely have them come out to the school and spend some time with us, because I guarantee you they'll leave with a smile on their face and want some more.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun. We enjoy, as instructors, we love what we do. People sometimes ask me, Larry, what do you do for a living? I said, well, I hang out with car people and talk about cars all day. And when I get to go to the racetrack, that's even more fun. So we get paid for doing that. And it's a thrill to be able to do that.
And if you take, it'll not only, it's a ton of fun, but it could save their life.
Yes,
the skills that they learn are skills that, are so valuable on the roads. I always tell people I'm safer at the racetrack than I am on the 405. Without any doubt, for two reasons. One, because almost everybody at the racetrack has some level of training and skill. And the other part is there's an ambulance at every racetrack and a plan and all of that kind of stuff. So it's, if you're going to get into a wreck, that's the place to do it. But no, I think, all the training that we get, it directly translates to helping you be safer on the roads. And
absolutely.
And I think that's really important. Go ahead.
I was going to say, and the thing is, too, with our school and our owners' backgrounds in data-driven analysis, that not only works from the race school standpoint, but also for the corporations that want to come in. And we can run the gamut. We can do ride and drives for corporate ride and drives if they want to do a new vehicle launch training program, team building, whatever the case may be. For different fleet driving, if they have fleets that they're wanting to have safer drivers and reduce accidents. Mm-hmm. And we have all the data that goes into show, yes, we have reduced their accident by this much, or fender benders by this much, and many more miles driven without, an incident or recovery. And, honestly, these days too, especially the defensive driving and some of the things that we teach executives, so limousine drivers and executive protection. And some of those programs are extremely vital and important. If somebody's in a bad area or somebody chasing you or whatever, paparazzi, that sort of thing,
Sure.
understanding the vehicle dynamics and how to get out of those situations is vital.
Yep.
And so we do that as well. So that's certainly, when you talk about safety, yes, sir. And a little bit, selfish on our part, if we're sharing the road with you too, we want you to be a better driver.
Absolutely. One last note, your home track now, Buttonwillow, there's a new thing coming in January. I am so excited. I'm guessing you've had a chance to at least go slow on the new track.
I actually have.
Tell us a little bit about it.
I was leaving a driving school we did out there, and I said, hey, I got the rental car. I said, can I go out on there? Yeah, drive around. And it was really fascinating for me to see that track on track, because on paper, ever since they drew the map on paper, it's like, it looks kind of slow. It looks like it's all medium speed. It doesn't look very fast. But get on track, wow, it's wide and it looks fast. It's flowing. Elevation changes and camber.
Banking.
And it looks like it's going to be really, really fun. And the end of January, last weekend in January for a Cal Club is first race on that track. And so, be there, be square, as they say.
Yeah, first race is going to be the Cal Club race, and then the Hoosier Racing Tire Super Tour will be there in February. So we're going to kick it off pretty well. I've been out there several times, checking it out, looking at it. They've given us Cal Club members little drive, follow along tours and everything. Funny story, one of the highest viewed videos on my YouTube channel was I went out there before they laid any pavement, and I said, can I take a video of the track just to show people what it was? So I go out with the track, and my buddy's out there driving, and I've got my camera, and I'm shooting a video, and I get back, and I put it all together, and I put it up, and everybody's excited to watch it. And Cece Smith, who is the Cal Club administrator, I call her the boss, but she's technically she's the administrator, but she is the boss. Anyway, she sends me an email. You drove it backwards. The entire video was in the wrong direction. So if you watch that video, go the other way. Watch it in reverse.
Yeah. Well, I think they designed it where you can go both ways too. My first time on Buttonwillow, the regular track, was in a hayride before it was paved. So it's fun.
So that is the one thing with the circuit. It's going to be one direction. It is not going to be driven in both directions. So,
okay.
And I think part of that is because of the sanctuary in the middle that they can't touch. If they were to run it in the other direction, that would now become a runoff area. And they can't,
that makes sense.
They can't let any cars in that area. So
Kangaroo Rat has to have his space.
I really wanted us to call it the Kangaroo Rat Circuit, the racetrack, but they denied my request for that. So anyway,
it's a beautiful facility. They've done a great job with it. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. So, Larry, thank you so much for spending some time. Of course, thank you to the whole team for being the presenting sponsor of Inside the SCCA, and I'm sure we will have you on again. We'll find some other topics to really dig deep in, maybe do some carcraft stuff. And this was kind of an overview more of what raceschool.com is and does. But I'd love to take some time, maybe once every 2 or 3 months, get you on, or maybe some of your other instructors to dig into a particular, topic of carcraft, because, I want to learn too. So people realize I do these podcasts for me, and if everyone else likes them, fantastic. But yeah, I think that would be fun to really dig into some carcraft stuff.
Absolutely. So start your racing journey with us. It's the ultimate in personal coaching, the one-on-one. We sure appreciate what you do for the SCCA and your podcast. You do a great job. And thank you to all your viewers and listeners for tuning in tonight. Hopefully we'll see you out at the race school, and we'll see you behind the wheel of the race car.
All right, that's going to do it for another episode of Inside the SCCA, presented by RacingSchool.com. If you like what you're hearing, subscribe to the RacingWire Podcast Network so you won't miss any episodes. It would also be great if you leave a comment, especially if it's a good one. If it's a bad one, leave it on someone else's podcast page. Follow us on social media so you can find out who our next guest is, and leave questions on Twitter. It is @RaceAnnouncer. Don't ask me how I got that. I got that because I've been on Twitter since day one. Anyway, there's a new Inside the SCCA every week. I'm Brian Bielanski. Have yourself a fantastic weekend. Have fun. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. and go play with cars.
Hi, I'm Dorsey Schrader, and this is Inside the SCCA.